The Boys Season 4 is airing at the moment, at least as of time of recording. It gets a lot of internet buzz every season for doing something wholly out of pocket. It's filled with lots of inventive gore and weird sex stuff, which does make it really exhilarating for me personally. In some ways, it pushes against the bounds of Puritan sensibilities that drives a lot of censorship and holding back in art and in TV especially. Look, if a popular show can get away with Ant-Man genital vor explosion death, then maybe people who have maybe a little bit out there imaginations can have an easier time getting the green light on their own projects, which, amazing. As the season's been airing, people have gone, oh my god, it's woke. It's making fun of conservatives. It's hot garbage, mama. And then other people go, you're just now figuring that out? Losers. And everyone has a lot of fun scoring internet dunk points one way or the other, and the show gets a lot of free publicity. Good job, guys. And if you've been watching the show since the first season like I have, you go, oh, wait a second. Didn't this happen during season 3 with Homelander? And with season 2 and Stormfront, and also season 1 with Homelander again. One of the greatest and most annoying bits about discourse is that it is never ending and ever repeating. The politics of the show can be cool to talk about. It has a sort of anti-capitalism angle. It argues that a lot of, if not most of the people who get famous off of riling people up on political issues are grifters. You could take that as a both sides, haha, everyone sucks angle, but is it? Not really. It's an anti-populism argument that I fully agree with. Populism is bad. Populists of all sort thrive purely on anger, and you should hold them all with extreme skepticism. It very clearly despises Trump, and Stormfront, in my opinion, is maybe most closely analogized with Steve Bannon. I think it's easy to look at the show and roll your eyes at the cynicism. The message seems to be that power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Game of Thrones did a similar thing. Insert Lindsay Ellis here. If your opponents hold power and will strike you low, don't you have to get on their level to fight them? Otherwise, aren't you just being a naive little idiot? Is it possible to be a good person with power? Well, I think that's a little simplistic for both of those shows, actually, but I'm really not interested in how The Boys examines power in politics. The Boys is, yes, a sort of cynical political show told through superheroes and boundary-pushing weird sex stuff, but isn't it actually kind of really hopeful? I ask too many questions. I know that's my writing style. Sorry about it. I'm pretty long-winded. But I do actually have one main question. I know, I'm sneaking more in there. That gets to what I think is actually at the heart of The Boys. What makes us who we are? The ship of Theseus, yes, pretentious, wonders if you slowly replace the parts of a ship with new parts, will the resulting ship be the ship of Theseus, or is it something different? At what point does it become a new ship if it does? If you replace the parts of the ship of Theseus one by one, and you then use those parts to, one by one, build an exact replica of the first ship, is the replica with the original parts the actual ship of Theseus? Or is it the one with the replaced parts? The Summer Hikaru Died is a horror manga with gay vibes. Love that. In a rural Japanese town, Yoshiki's best friend and likely crush Hikaru dies in the woods. His body is taken over by a godlike entity, let's say a Neo Hikaru. Neo Hikaru can access many of the original's memories and often tries his best to act like Hikaru. Is he Hikaru? The manga determines that he isn't. He is something different. But he's still kind of Hikaru. It's the body, it's his memories. If Hikaru is the ship of Theseus, then the form maintains continuity through space-time. That's one of the ways people suggest which is which. The parts even aren't really replaced here. There is simply something additional placed inside, and something ephemeral is lost. Are we our form? Our bodies? Well, that can have some problematic implications. If you lose a limb, do you become less of yourself? Yikesies. Transhumanism asks if replacing a limb with, say, Otto Male from Fullmetal Alchemist makes that metal limb part of you. Do you become the metal? If it's broken, have you lost that part of yourself? Do you remain human? obviously. We are history. You know, Hikaru's body experienced Hikaru's life. In this ship, the parts were never replaced. There isn't an argument about whether or not A equals B or C. It's a question of if A equals A. We can apply that to the mind. If you have severe amnesia, are you still you? In The Good Place, Chidi makes an argument that he doesn't need his afterlife memories because whatever happened there happened effectively to a different person, so it isn't any of his business. It wasn't really Chidi. We are our experiences. But he gets called out on that position. That's him running away into philosophy to avoid potentials. Chidi Anagonye is what the boys is really interested in. Are we our past? How do we manage to not be consumed by our experience? I want to talk about a few characters and their attempts to deal with their past versus their presents versus their futures. Because I think that's where the show really thrives. 1. Homelander. Homelander was systematically abused as a child at the hands of disinterested scientists threatened by the bloody hands of an uncaring, historically racist company. He was isolated, burned, attacked, and psychologically manipulated, and that vague overview is putting it nicely. His past haunts him. You see it pop up in his sexual hang-ups. Madeline Stillwell controls him through playing the part of the mother. Oh, Oedipus. He drinks from her breast, and like many children, when a newborn comes into the mix, her actual child, Teddy, Homelander gets jealous at the lessened attention that means for him. In Season 4, Episode 4, Homelander takes a happy little field trip to a lab where he was raised, and he does a silly little revenge torture on some of the scientists who treated him like a lab rat. He's fed up with his humanity, or rather, that's the excuse his psyche uses to send him there to confront and destroy his past. If he manages revenge, he'll no longer be haunted. At least that's what his fragile psyche thinks. The wounds of his childhood will finally fade, and he assumes healing those wounds will make him perfect. He'll no longer be bound by humanity. He won't be hurt. Homelander is his past. He needs the love and approval he was never gifted. That's why he behaves the way he does. Maybe if he kills the scientists, the nightmares will stop. The need for love will stop. If he kills Madeline Stillwell, will he stop longing for a mother? If he raises Ryan as a god, will he stop being a lonely child himself? Homelander is an on-the-nose stand-in for Donald Trump, at least for large parts of the show. The show is very much critiquing the former president and his supporters through Homelander, his actions, and his supporters. So obviously his soup supremacist ideology is a stand-in for white supremacism. Why does he hold it? Well, if Homelander can convince himself that he is a god, he might be able to convince himself that all the trauma inflicted upon him was inevitable. Humanity cannot help but try to kill God out of an existential fear. If he can convince himself of that reality, that means it isn't his fault. He wasn't hurt because of who he is, but what he is. That's easier to handle on some level. It's a metaphorical killing of the actual facts of his past. Yes, those scientists were terrified of him as a child. But those humans, the people who raised him and were supposed to love him, decided to cause him harm continuously. But as we see through his unending insecurity, Homelander cannot kill his past. None of us can. His attempts drive him deeper into insanity and cruelty. This, the boys argues, is a futile endeavor that will only ever hurt you and those around you. 2. Frenchie. Frenchie represents a similar way of dealing with what we have done and what has been done to us. Most obviously, he attempts to drown it in alcohol and burn it away through drugs. He's constantly smoking, drinking, and shooting up throughout the course of the show. He is a chemist. His concoctions harm and kill soups sometimes he fails, but his greatest desire, it seems, is to kill himself and thereby kill his past. Frenchie has moments of being more or less clean, but this, the show says, we all already know is a futile endeavor. The drugs eventually run out or they kill you. And when your head clears, you will still be you. Your past will still be your past. Drugs cannot explode the ship of Theseus in any way that matters. I see a lot of complaints about Frenchie each season, but I find him the second most compelling character after Kimiko. Side note, I think the least interesting character with the least interesting arc is Monsieur Coutier, actually Butcher. After being abused by his father, Frenchie became a lapdog of the Russian mafia and little Nina. She talks to him as if he is a puppy, a submissive, a boy who must be owned, if not by her, then by Mallory or Butcher. When he is not on a leash, he is responsible. When he makes his own choices, Mallory's grandchildren die. Submission, like substance abuse, can be a way of killing the past in your brain. When you go into a submissive headspace, you don't have to think. Anxiety disappears. Stress lessens. And the guilt, the massive, crushing guilt, fades. Submission can often be the sublimation of the lack of control being alive brings. When you're a goon, no, not that way, gay Twitter, you can say you aren't responsible for your actions. There is no free will, so you can attempt to push aside what happened. In season 3, Frenchie pushes back against his submission. He does not want to be bound by the past, right? That's why people are rolling their eyes at his arc in season 4, at least over on Reddit where everyone's happy all the time. He's haunted again. Only Frenchie is an addict, addicted to his own suffering. When Frenchie gets too close to people, when they glimpse the ugliness he holds, he lashes out. Then he comes crawling back. He can't stay away from the wounds he causes because living in the viscera reaffirms his view of himself. He is filthy. He is miasma. He finds a victim from his past as a hitman, and they form a relationship. Frenchie knows this is a bad idea, but he stays there anyway. Maybe if he loves this man, then the hurt he did will go away. And if it can't be erased, then being right there lets Frenchie hate himself. Colin learns the truth and tries to kill him. That's the good end for Frenchie. If Colin can get revenge, then maybe one of the wounds Frenchie inflicted can be erased. This, the boys argues, is also not the correct way to deal with your past. Torturing yourself does not make you a good person. It does not erase the suffering of any survivors of what you have done. All it will do is... 3. Lamplighter. Lamplighter is Frenchie's parallel. He spends his past high, not on Frenchie's drug cocktails, but on power. Power is superiority and domination. That performance allows you to imagine yourself in control. Non-intuitively, it can almost be the same sublimation as you see with submission. If you have such strong control, you have the power to erase the hurt in your past. If you are a superior, you can pretend the hurt you have caused is insignificant. After torturing Mallory's grandchildren, Lamplighter retires. He takes care of imprisoned soups and often burns them over and over to death. He's a good soldier. He can turn his brain off, I guess. He can inflict the same death that he gave those children in his nightmares over and over and over and drown himself in the pains of his memory. He puts himself through hell. That's what this is. The torture is how he handles his past. As with Frenchie, it doesn't help anyone, least of all himself. Like Frenchie, he wants one of his victims to kill him. Frenchie killed Colin's family. Lamplighter killed Mallory's. In both instances, their would-be killer desires their death, but doesn't end up following through on it. I wrote this after episode 4 of season 4, so as of now, we don't know how Frenchie will truly handle this. I watched episode 5. It looks like religion and turning himself in, but far from here. Lamplighter committed suicide. This, the boy says, drowning in your past? It'll kill you. 4. Butcher. Butcher deals with his past through anger. He desires revenge. At first, his violence is driven by his hatred for his father. He and his brother, Lenny, were abused by a drunk. Lenny went and did a lamplighter. Butcher lets his past fester because anger feels like a holy emotion. You can sustain yourself off of anger, kind of. And if it leads you to a vendetta, it can make you feel like your past had a reason. Becca died. Horrible as this is, to send Butcher down the path to toppling Vought. He doesn't want to defeat Homelander because it's the right thing to do. Who cares about that? Butcher wants to kill Homelander because Butcher wanted to kill his father and never did. This isn't simply his revenge for Becca, it's his revenge for Lenny. If Butcher doesn't live for the fight, he'll have to truly sit with all of his pain, everything that's been done to him and that he's done to others. He'll have to think of every life he's taken and ruined, including Huey's. Huey reminds Butcher of Lenny. By keeping Huey around and toughening him up, Butcher can live in the fantasy of having saved his brother. He can push away his pain. He can further fuel himself off of Huey's anger. Huey's anger is Lenny's anger, after all. And Butcher's path of revenge is both failing and killing him. He's ruined every relationship he's ever had. Continuously beating on Huey is another way of beating on Lenny and causing himself pain. There is no path to happiness for Butcher. He's not saved the world. He's as genocidal as Homelander. Butcher's path too, the boys argues. Turning your past into vengeance and anger? Well, that's a bad path. 5. Starlight. When Starlight is introduced, she warns everyone that her powers can blind people. In season 4, we discover that on her first rescue, she blinded people, and that was covered up. She apparently went on to smile like she hadn't just done something horrific. Firecracker reveals that Starlight basically ruined her life by spreading rumors of sexual impropriety when they were both children. Starlight also fat-shamed Firecracker. It's a bit of a shock when those revelations come out and we see Starlight admit to it with her face. We obviously know Starlight is capable of being vindictive, manipulative, and cruel. She can kill someone in cold blood if it furthers her goals. The groundwork is all there for this simple glimpse into her past, but it still feels out of character because Starlight has reinvented herself. That is how Starlight handles her past. Coming out of her childhood, Annie January reinvented from the mean pageant girl to a bubbly, wholesome hero. After joining the Seven and being traumatized over and over again, she reinvents herself once more when she escapes Vought Tower. She no longer wants to be Starlight. She fully becomes Annie January. This is how she runs away. Now, Starlight is really interesting because she's one of the few characters in the show that is mostly portrayed as good on the moral scale. Her efforts to outrun her past have led her primarily down the road of morality. Whether this is atonement, a way of survival, or who she simply is and chooses to be, this is undoubtedly a good road to walk. One way to deal with the harms we have caused is to simply be a better person today. You have to heal more than you have hurt. You endeavor to be better. But the show says, replacing your parts, becoming new, does not remove your history as the ship of Theseus. The wounds you've been dealt and the ones you've given still exist. You will still have to choose how to handle them. When injuries she's dealt are pointed out, Annie runs away. She makes a new her. That's what she does every time. When her scars are poked, when she is bleeding, she tries to cauterize the wound, which, to be fair, she's got Bernie flash powers, so she kind of can, physically at least. She gives in to her anger. Reinvention to the good, according to the show, is a better path, but it is still running away. It will not remove you from who you are, what you've done, and what's been done to you. This too, the boy says, will not free you. 6. Kimiko. Kimiko is filled with rage. Of course she is. She's Wolverine unleashed. / stabby. She went mute as a child and has been ever since due to the psychological trauma she's had to endure as a child soldier and experiment. She wants revenge on all those who have harmed her, her people, her brother, the kids she was raised and forced to go with. She rips people's faces off. She longs to destroy Stormfront. This, we see, doesn't help her. Here, she is Butcher. She turns to contract killing. An assassin is sent to kill, and that allows her to express her rage and turn off the need to think. The loss of control brings back control, ironically. She also drinks a lot. She makes dirty jokes. Levity and rage mix. When she meets a young woman she brought into and scarred within Shining Light Liberation Army, she wants to save her. Through saving her, maybe that will make up for her past. Here, in these moments, she is Frenchie. After losing her powers to Soldier Boy, Kimiko experiences once again what it's like to be helpless. She couldn't save her brother. She almost loses Frenchie. While she struggles with the immense carnage that lays behind her, Kimiko cannot accept powerlessness. She takes Compound V once more and becomes, again, a monster. In a way, here, she is Huey. But this moment from Kimiko shows a sort of acceptance of her past. Yes, she has caused harm, and if she goes down this road, she will probably cause harm again. But that doesn't mean she is only capable of harm. Her form does not determine her function. Kimiko had a plank removed from her ship, and then it was returned, and yet she was no longer the same ship of Theseus. Sort of. Some people's frustration with Kimiko so far in Season 4, at least as time of recording, is that she's somewhat regressed, like Frenchie, into some old habits. But again, like Frenchie, I think that's what makes her so interesting. Kimiko is looking into getting help. She wants to move forward. She considers speech therapy. She had a dream once of singing and being free and happy, letting herself be happy. Despite her past, despite her present, Kimiko has moments where she genuinely lives for the future. She has hope. This, the boy says, has potential. You can never undo the past. That is a awfully confusing Gordian knot. But that does not mean you can't endeavor to joy, to being better. Howdy! Like, comment, subscribe. Join me over on Patreon for a cheap subscription of $3. What? $3? I know. Buy my poetry collection, Butterfly Snuff, out on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and hardback. Paperback and hardback have an exclusive poem on the back. And yeah, I'll see you in the next vid. 7. Queen Maeve. Wouldn't she hate that that's our position? Until her exit in Season 3, I thought Maeve was actually the most interesting character on the show. She had such a, defeated charisma. She's every single depressed alcoholic detective in a noir who's given up. She's Disco Elysium, jaded, drunk, and vaguely doing her job of violence. She's scared, sure, but mostly she regrets her roles in massive harm. She didn't save anyone on that plane. She let Homelander get away with it. She let him ruin her love life. She lives in terror of her wound, as well the guilt of the harm she's done has rendered her impotent. To drown it out, Maeve lives in sex and alcohol. She's a dismissive avoidant because she views herself as a cancer. She attracts danger, after all. Homelander will kill anyone she loves. That's what she assumes. She cannot give those people happiness. So she might as well throw them away first. Maeve deals with her past by isolating. Then she meets Starlight. She sees someone powerful and aimed at the good who does not follow her path of misery. Slowly, it inspires her. She stands up for herself. She threatens Homelander. It's here, with a taste of power again, she becomes obsessed with revenge. For a moment, she is Butcher. She wants to kill all Supes, including herself. But then she meets Annie again. And again, she has hope for the future. Maeve eventually gives up on her revenge against Homelander, almost immediately after heavily injuring him. She sacrifices herself in her revenge to save Starlight. But then she manages to survive, depowered. She's human. Her old life is dead. Though she must live injured and in hiding, though she cannot give herself a new form, she is no longer the same ship. Here the boys reveals its hand a little. You cannot run from your past. You cannot drink it away or drown it in sex. To become jaded is simply a defense mechanism that will fail. It will not save you. Revenge will not save you. You must work for a better future. You have to hope. You have to accept that you are worthy of love and a normal, quiet life despite it all. You will still be wounded. You will forever be changed by your past. There is nothing you can do to destroy it. But you can outlive it. You can, like Starlight, endeavor for the good. The difference between Starlight and Maeve is that Starlight reinvented herself without accepting her past. She reinvented, at least partially, to avoid her past. To free yourself, the boy says, you have to accept that you can't. You can't free yourself. Your past happened. It hurt you, and at moments it will continue to hurt you. You will still have nightmares. You will still be angry and scared and sad at moments. But it can only destroy you if you run. Let it catch you. Accept the emotions. Accept the shitty things you've done. Work to make up for them. Accept the shitty things that have been done to you. Hold the sadness and fear and anger, then find some way to let them go. This, the boy says, so far at least, is the only way you get to live. And maybe that is a bit cynical, but I think it holds a tremendous amount of hope. You are haunted, the boy says. You have corpses behind you and scars down your arms. You are haunted. You will have moments walking into the future where you will be reminded of the ghost. You will turn your head and you will see phantoms staring at you dead-eyed. You are haunted, the boy says. You are haunted, and you will suffer, and you have suffered. And you will inflict suffering, and you have inflicted suffering. But the ghosts don't have to take you. They don't have to possess you. Despite it all, you can still be you. You are haunted. But that does not mean you're dead.